So I came across some new numbers on the wealth growth among billionaires, and this is incredible. The Institute for Policy Studies. Global billionaires see $5.5 trillion pandemic wealth surge. Global advocates call for one-time 99% emergency tax on billionaires' pandemic windfalls to fund COVID-19 jabs for the entire world. The world's billionaires have seen their wealth surge by over $5.5 trillion since the beginning of the pandemic in March 2020, a gain of over 68%. The world's 2,690 global billionaires saw their combined wealth rise from $8 trillion on March 18, 2020 to $13.5 trillion as of July 31st, 2021, drawing on data from Forbes. Global billionaire total wealth has increased more over the past 17 months of the pandemic than it did in the 15 years prior to the pandemic. Between 2006 and 2020, global billionaire wealth increased from $2.65 trillion to $8 trillion, a gain of $5.35 trillion. This is absolutely astonishing. Billionaires have reaped an unseemly windfall at a time when millions have lost their lives and livelihoods. The pandemic has supercharged existing global inequalities, with the wealth profiteering from the shuttering of the Main Street economies around the world. Global equality advocates are calling on national governments to levy a one-time 99% tax on these billionaire windfall pandemic gains to pay for everyone on Earth to be vaccinated against COVID-19 and provide a $20,000 cash grant to all unemployed workers. Wow. The analysis and proposal were released today by Oxfam, the Fight Inequality Alliance, the Institute for Policy Studies, and the Patriotic Billionaires. The organizations are calling on governments to tax the ultra-wealthy who profited from the pandemic crisis to help offset its costs. The one-time emergency COVID-19 billionaire tax would raise $5.445 trillion and still leave the world's 2,690 billionaires $55 billion richer than before the virus struck, an average of $37 million per billionaire. Governments across the world are massively undertaxing the wealthiest individuals and big corporations, which is undermining the fight against COVID-19 and poverty and inequality. That is really something, those last numbers. Each billionaire will still gain an average of $37 million, even if we tax them at 99%. 99% on their windfalls during the COVID pandemic. So, first of all, needless to say, I absolutely love the idea. I think it's wonderful. But of course, you knew there was going to be a but, you knew there was going to be a caveat and an asterisk, but there is no global body to levy such a tax. You're not going to be able to tax through the UN or the World Trade Organization. They have their own problems, those bodies. You're not going to have the International Criminal Court get involved or whatever. So there is no way to really carry this out, but it really shows you, even with a 99% tax, they'd still be getting way wealthier. And it's wild to think about that because everybody else is struggling in this economy and with this pandemic, and people have lost their jobs and running out of money, and people have lost their lives, and billionaires have just made out like bandits from this. And those numbers really are just a complete slap across the face to put it in context and perspective. They gained $5.5 trillion since just the beginning of the pandemic. That's an increase of 68%. Their wealth went from $8 trillion the day before COVID to $13.5 trillion. So there was this massive wealth consolidation, even way worse than what we had just before COVID. It's exacerbating all of the problems and inequalities. We have to take drastic action to fight back against this wealth concentration and to give people an equal shot, to give people just the hope that they can make it, to create some semblance of a meritocracy. You guys know these facts because I say them all the time, but half of workers in America make $30,000 a year or less. That was before the pandemic. 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That was before the pandemic. I mean, imagine what it's like now. Imagine how bad it is now. And all the while, the billionaires are running out the back door with all the money. I mean, billionaires even make other members of the top 1% look wealthy or look poor, by comparison. This all was avoidable, by the way, too, with good public policy. All you would have needed to do to avoid this, at least in the context of the United States, and again, this is global, so it's a little different, but all you needed to do was have unionization levels high. In fact, we should have it so the default is that you're in a union, and you would have to opt out if you wanted to opt out, but have unionization all across this country. Keep those New Deal programs intact and expand them, and have really high marginal tax rates on the rich and redistribute by giving people universal health care and universal education, eliminating student loan debt and eliminating medical debt and things of that nature. I mean, at this point, if you're not in favor of redistribution of wealth, you're just massively cucked by global capital. You know, the position is redistribution of wealth. In fact, the only way we could continue is to do massive redistribution of wealth, because this stuff is going to bubble up in terrible ways if it's not addressed in a serious way. I mean, that was the whole thing with the New Deal too, is that the reason why they were able to get that through is because people felt like if they don't massively reform the system right now, then the system could collapse in on itself and implode, and it could be replaced by communism or socialism or some other system that we've yet to conceive of. But you have to give up some of your money, or else they're going to take all of your money, is basically the pitch that was made to the robber barons. And that same pitch should exist right now, because these numbers are absolutely astonishing and anybody can see it.